Have you ever wondered what would happen if the US dollar collapsed? What if, overnight, the world's most powerful currency lost its value, plunging the global economy into chaos? It may sound like a scene from a dystopian movie, but history tells us that no currency is invincible. The United States dollar is the world's reserve currency, trusted by governments, businesses, and individuals worldwide. It powers global trade, influences stock markets, and serves as a safe haven in times of crisis. But what if that trust were to disappear? What if hyperinflation, massive debt, or geopolitical shifts led to the collapse of the dollar? In this video, we'll explore what could trigger a collapse of the US dollar, what would happen to the global economy, and how it would affect you. So, buckle up, this is going to be a wild ride. What does it mean for a currency to collapse? When we say a currency collapses, we mean that its value plummets rapidly, making it virtually worthless. This typically happens due to hyperinflation. When a government prints too much money, prices skyrocket, and the currency becomes useless. Think of Zimbabwe in the 2000s, where inflation hit 89.7 billion% per month. Loss of confidence. If people stop believing in the dollar, they rush to exchange it for other assets, causing a self-fulfilling prophecy of decline. Debt crisis. If the U.S. government defaults on its debt or faces a financial meltdown, investors could abandon the dollar, causing a collapse. Geopolitical shifts. If major economies like China, Russia, or the European Union decide to ditch the dollar in favor of another currency, its global dominance could weaken rapidly. Now, let's talk about the biggest question. What could cause the dollar to collapse? While the dollar has survived numerous financial crises, there are real risks that could threaten its stability. Uncontrollable U.S. debt. The United States is drowning in debt, over $34 trillion and growing. If investors lose confidence in the U.S. government's ability to repay its debts, they may start selling off U.S. Treasury bonds, causing the dollar to weaken. A sudden debt crisis could send shockwaves through the global financial system. Hyperinflation and money printing. The Federal Reserve has been printing massive amounts of money in response to economic crises. While this helps in the short term, it can lead to inflation spiraling out of control. If hyperinflation hits the U.S., the dollar could lose its purchasing power rapidly, making everyday goods unaffordable. De-dollarization countries. Ditching the dollar for decades, the U.S. dollar has been the world's primary reserve currency. However, many countries, like China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia, are actively working to reduce their dependence on the dollar. If major economies switch to other currencies, the demand for dollars will shrink, weakening its dominance. A global economic crisis or banking collapse. Imagine if a financial crisis even bigger than the 2008 Great Recession hit the U.S. If banks fail, markets crash, and trust in the U.S. economy disappears, the dollar could face a major collapse. Stock markets would crash, savings could be wiped out, and unemployment would skyrocket. But what would happen next? The global impact of a U.S. dollar collapse. If the U.S. dollar were to collapse, the entire world economy would face a catastrophic chain reaction. Here's why. Global markets in chaos. Since most international trade and commodities, like oil and gold, are priced in U.S. dollars, a collapse would create massive uncertainty. Countries holding U.S. debt would suffer major losses, and stock markets would go into freefall. Skyrocketing inflation in the U.S. With the dollar losing value, imported goods would become ridiculously expensive. Everyday essentials like food, gas, and medicine would see extreme price hikes, making life unaffordable for millions. Worldwide recession or depression. The U.S. economy is the largest in the world, and if its currency collapses, global supply chains would break down. Countries that rely on U.S. trade, such as Canada, Mexico, and European nations, would be dragged into a severe recession. The rise of alternative currencies. With the dollar weakened, other currencies like the Chinese yuan, the euro, or even cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin could try to take its place as the new global standard. But shifting away from the dollar would cause extreme volatility in global finance. How would it affect you? You might be wondering, how would a U.S. dollar collapse impact my daily life? Well, here's what could happen. Your savings could lose value. If the dollar collapses, your bank savings could become worthless overnight. Imagine working for decades only to see your money evaporate. Extreme price hikes, food, rent, energy, and medical care would become unaffordable as inflation spirals out of control. Mass job losses. Businesses struggling with rising costs and economic chaos would shut down, leading to massive unemployment. Debt could become unpayable. If the dollar loses value but your debts remain the same, paying off loans or mortgages could become impossible. But here's the big question: can a dollar collapse be prevented? Can the US dollar be saved? While a total collapse is unlikely in the near future, steps must be taken to prevent disaster. The US government and Federal Reserve would need to control inflation by managing interest rates and limiting excessive money printing, reduce national debt, cutting spending and increasing revenue to restore confidence, strengthen the economy, encouraging growth through innovation, manufacturing, and trade, reinforce the dollar's global role, maintaining strong economic and diplomatic ties with global partners. However, if policymakers fail to act, the risk of a dollar collapse will continue to grow. Is the collapse of the dollar inevitable? So will the US dollar collapse? While it's not likely to happen overnight, the risks are real. If debt keeps growing, inflation remains uncontrolled, and global trust in the dollar weakens, a crisis could emerge. And if that day comes, the world as we know it will change forever. What do you think? Could the dollar collapse? What would be the safest assets in such a crisis? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dive economic insights.